Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. So we have a lot of things going on in the sky this month. There's already been a couple things, but we have a few more things to look forward to. Not the least of which is this 7th total lunar eclipse or blood moon of President Nelson's presidency. I didn't realize that until I made this video. I was getting a bunch of emails and texts and stuff like that talking about, hey, we have this upcoming total lunar eclipse. And when I looked into it, I found out this is going to be the 7th of President Nelson's presidency. And remember, he has now completed 7 years as president of the church. January 14th of this year was his 7-year anniversary. So, and there's other interesting things and dates that go along with this particular total lunar eclipse, but there's more. So I came across this article from Forbes, Northern Lights, a blood moon, and a solar eclipse, the sky in March. There are a number of things going on right now. So we're going to cover what it says in this article and so many other things. Really quick, I want to remind you of this spreadsheet called Prophets, President Nelson's Warnings, where I compiled a list of things that I feel like lead up to this upcoming April 2025 General Conference. There are a lot of things. I'm just going to do a quick overview. So this is going to be the April 2025 General Conference. You go back 10 years to 2015, the First Presidency Christmas devotional, and famously, Elder Bednar did a thing where he had everybody imagine that they were a child. Like, I think it was like 5 years old when they saw Samuel the Lamanite give the prophecy and warning about Christ coming into the world in 5 years. And it felt like it wasn't just him doing a fun exercise for us, but that something may actually happen in 5 years. And indeed it did. 5 years later was 5 years later was the year 2020. We all know what happened in that year. And probably the climax, or one of the most important things that happened that year, was the April 2020 General Conference. President Nelson said that it was a hinge point. We did a Hosanna shout, new church symbol. The restoration of the fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ proclamation was put out. Okay, so now we are 5 years after that, exactly 5 years. And that by itself, I think, is pretty incredible. There are some other things really quick. We had the Paradise, California fire that President Nelson went to go visit Paradise in the aftermath. And then he included it in his April 2019 General Conference talk. And that's where he said, time is running out. And he gave a warning from Doctrine and Covenants 132, verse 7, a warning that a lot of you, well, not a lot of you, but some of you ignore or don't think is real. But he's repeated it. This was the first time that I've found that he's said it in General Conference. That same year, there was the Rome-Italy Temple dedication, which was also called a hinge point in the history of the church. Okay. And then October 2022 General Conference, President Nelson called upon us to be the people of the second coming in his talk called Overcome the World and Find Rest. And I think that was a very real thing. It wasn't just him giving himself over to hyperbole. Sister Nelson says that he doesn't speak in a hyperbole. And then for 2 general conferences in a row, October 2022 and April 2023, in his final talk, he pointed us to 3rd Nephi chapter 11. The first time he showed us the clip from the Book of Mormon video series of Christ coming to the Nephites. In the next general conference, he asked us to read that. That general conference was also the general conference where there was this big emphasis on Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday essentially was a foreshadowing of Christ's second coming and the implementation of his political kingdom, which is yet to be. And then October 2023 General Conference, he repeats the Doctrine and Covenants 132 verse 7 warning. I would not pretend like that's not real or ignore that if I were you. Last year, the Kirtland Temple came back into the church, something that I never thought would happen until the millennium. And then later in the year, President Nelson gave his big second coming talk. So you see how things just get like more and more serious, and It feels like, what's next? It feels like this is kind of like the climax to me in a lot of ways. November of last year, President Nelson dedicated the 200th temple of the church. That was a big milestone. The Deseret Peak Utah Temple in Tooele. And that brings us to this year. So, and by the way, I should have put this on here. President Nelson turned 100 years old last year. That also seemed to be a pretty big milestone. How did I miss that? Okay, well, 2025, now we have an even bigger, more destructive kind of like collection of fires in the Los Angeles area, of all places. President Nelson, so that was on the 7th of January. 7 is going to be a big number in this video. 7th of January. 7 days later, President Nelson hit his 7-year anniversary as president of the church. And then that brings us to right now. We're going to talk about the details of this 7th total lunar eclipse, or 7th blood moon of President Nelson's presidency. And there's been a lot of interesting things, it seems like, between President Nelson's presidency and what the moon has been doing during this time. Really quick, I want to point out that this upcoming General Conference, the Sunday is going to coincide with April 6th. This is also a Joseph Smith, what he called Jubilee year. Every 7 years, he declared a Jubilee year. There were only 2 times that happened. The year that the Kirtland Temple was dedicated, and then 7 years later. And then as far as I know, the church didn't continue with that. But if they had, this year would be the next one. And then I'm wondering if President Nelson is going to announce his 200th temple. It seems like there's like these milestones and these goals. And I wouldn't be surprised if he announces whatever number he needs to announce to have it be 200 temples announced as for him personally. Okay, so we'll get into the lunar eclipse in just a minute, but there's just some really interesting things. Let's go to the Forbes article. Okay, moon gazers and eclipse chasers have been waiting a long time since March 2025. Which I think that's supposed to be a long time for March 2025. The highlight this month has to be the first total lunar eclipse since 2022. Observable across North America, not far behind it is a partial solar eclipse. Okay, partial in solar, not lunar. The deepest and arguably most impressive in North America since 2021. A few tempting conjunctions between the moon and the planets. That's where they're like really close to each other as you look at them in the sky. And a promising forecast for the northern lights. And March 2025 has plenty of tempting celestial sights, both day and night. Okay, first, a crescent moon in Venus. When? Just after sunset, Saturday, March 1st, 2025. So that one's already come and gone. But I just want to show you a couple pictures that I've taken in the last couple months, because Venus has been really bright for a couple months, and there have been times that it's been pretty close to the moon from our point of view as we look up at them in the sky. Here's one that I took back in Kansas on December 4th. There was another night where it also looked pretty spectacular. What's the date here? February 1st of this year. So anyway, some of you have commented on this, that it's like stood out to you too. It's not that it like never happens. I've seen it before in my life, but whenever it does happen, it kind of like gives you a feeling. I don't know about you, but it gives me a certain feeling, and it just so happens that it's happening right now. Okay, back to the article. Okay, so we have that, and then Northern Lights, when after sunset, a few weeks either side of Thursday, March 20th. So that's coming up really soon. Where to look, the northern night sky. March 2025 may be one of the best months for spotting the northern lights, not only because our star is close to solar maximum, the peak of its 11-year solar cycle, but because the vernal equinox on March 20th puts Earth's axis perpendicular to the solar wind, which can trigger an uptick in aurora activity. Those in the northern U.S. states, Canada, in regions near the Arctic Circle, will have the best chances. So, unfortunately, they're not predicting something like what we saw last year, 2 times, by the way, something that I've never experienced in my lifetime, where the entire United States was able to see the aurora, depending on your location, because like if you're in a place with a lot of city lights or whatever, you couldn't see it, or if there was like cloud cover. But factoring those out, the entire United States was able to see the aurora. I never expected to see the aurora with my own eyes. I never planned on going anywhere up north. I saw this in Kansas, of all places. Some of you have sent pictures of the aurora. I hope that this happens again. I think that it can. So this article is not saying that this is going to happen, but there's more potential to see it than usual. But since we're still, it seems, in solar maximum, hopefully we will have a couple more, well, at least like one more of these events. So keep an eye out for that. If you see anything, please send it my way. This picture was taken by Jessica. She lives in Ohio. She's the one that set me up to where I could come up for the total solar eclipse last year and watch it from the Kirtland Temple. Her channel is Higher Holier History. Make sure to subscribe to her. But she took this awesome picture at the Kirtland Temple. Here's another one. You can't see it so well here, but this is, I think this is a pretty rare picture, seeing the aurora above the Kirtland Temple. And then here's one taken by her friend and my friend, Tracy Hewlett. So that's really neat. Others sent me these kind of pictures. Like we have these different temples. I think this one was the Layton, Utah temple. This is the Pocatello, Idaho temple. And then we'll talk about that in a little bit. Here's the Manti, Utah temple. And then here's the Pocatello, Idaho temple again. So if you ever get pictures like these, like something special going on around the temple or above the temple, please send them my way. I'll give you credit. I'll do a little watermark down here, copyright watermark, so no one else takes it without your permission. So, well, they shouldn't. They'll see the watermark. So, incredible things. Hopefully we'll see this again. Okay, number 3, a big moon and a bright Mars. Okay, so switching from Venus to Mars. When? After sunset on Saturday, March 8th. I'm recording this on the 7th, and I'm going to publish it on the morning of the 8th. So for you guys in the future, it's going to be tonight. After sunset on Saturday, March 8th. Where? The southern sky. In the early evening, look toward the southeast to see the gibbous moon passing close to Mars in the constellation Gemini. The 72 lit waxing gibbous moon will appear about 1 degree away from the red planet, making for an eye-catching sight. So I don't know if this is going to show up very well when you take a picture of it, but try and capture a picture of this. I'm going to try and do that myself. Mars will shine with a reddish hue and should be easy to spot without any equipment. Okay, now here we go. This is kind of like the main thing for this video. A blood moon total solar eclipse. When? Thursday, March 13th to Friday, March 14th. Where? High in the south to southwest night sky. The sky watching highlight of the month has to be a total lunar eclipse, or quote unquote blood moon, which will be visible overnight from North America on March 13th to 14th. Beginning at 10:57 p.m., that's Eastern time, the full moon will pass through Earth's shadow, reaching totality around 2:26 a.m. Eastern time. For 65 minutes, the moon will take on eerie shades of orange and red, a result of sunlight filtering through Earth's atmosphere. Okay, so let's talk about this. Here's a map of who should be able to see it the best, and as you can see, it's pretty much square on North America, although parts of South America should be able to see it pretty well. So hopefully if you're in these areas, you'll go out and see it. There's another Forbes article that kind of breaks it down, the different times of when you can expect to see which phase of the total solar eclipse, and it breaks down the different time zones. If time zones aren't your strong suit, you can refer to this. Here in Missouri, it's going to be 1:26 a.m. to 2:32 a.m. That's kind of late, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to take a look at that for myself. Okay. And then I went to NASA's website for lunar eclipses, and I highlighted the total lunar eclipses that have occurred during President Nelson's presidency. So you have the first one, just 17 days after he became president of the church. We'll talk about that in a minute. January 31st of 2018. And then there was another one that year, and then there was one the next year. So you have 3 here, and then you have to go to this other page because they do this for like every 10 years. So this is 2021 to 2030. Okay, so you had those 3, and then you had this one, and this one, and then this upcoming one is going to be the 7th. I'm paying attention to that. I think it's significant. I think all these things that I showed you on the other spreadsheet leading up to this general conference, I think they're all significant. So this is just another thing to add to that spreadsheet. And of all days, it's on the 14th. That's 2 7s. 14 shows up sometime. Famously, Joseph Smith was 14 years old when he had the first vision. So yeah, I think something is going on here. Okay. Oh, and by the way, if you're not going to be able to like go out and see it, the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles is going to live stream this, which I'm sure you can watch the replay later. This was sent to me by Phyla from my old ward back in Kansas. So thank you, Phyla, for letting me know and passing this on to everybody else. So you don't actually have to go out yourself and see it. You can watch it here. I'll put the link for this in the description box below. Okay. All right. So the moon and President Nelson. There's still more details to consider with this blood moon, but since we're talking about President Nelson, let's do a quick review of this spreadsheet. This is called Signs, Moons, and there have been a lot of interesting things going on with the moon. The first one that I have on here is actually from President Monson's time as president of the church. This was August 21st, 2017, where we had a total solar eclipse. Remember, a solar eclipse, even though it's called the solar eclipse, which refers to the sun, it happens because the moon passes between the earth and the sun. So it also involves the moon. The path of totality for that eclipse went over Jackson County, Far West, and Adirondack. And it happened on President Monson's 90th birthday, which was noted in Elder Stevenson's talk called Spiritual Eclipse of the October 2017 General Conference. I don't think that he was just saying it just to be like, hey, isn't that neat? But for those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, it's like, yeah, something special, something really special just happened. We're going to go to a map to take a look at this, like visually look at this, but we'll do that in a minute. Okay. And then you skip forward to January 31st, 2018. We talked about that. This was 17 days after President Nelson became president of the church. And it wasn't just any blood moon. It coincided with 2 other lunar events. It was a super moon, it was a blue moon, and a blood moon all at the same time. The last time that happened was 1866. Here are my references over here if you want to verify. So this was a very rare event. Okay. And by the way, President Nelson is the 17th president of the church. So he had that. The next month, February, did not have a full moon because it's a short month, and the way that it played out, there was no full moon in February of 2018. And that meant that we had a second blue moon in March. And it wasn't just any old blue moon. It was a blue Paschal moon, or like an Easter moon. It happened on the Saturday of that general conference, which was President Nelson's first general conference as president of the church. I don't think that that's an accident. Okay, later on, the next blue moon was on Halloween. The last time, it was visible across all time zones, which hasn't occurred since 1944. The next Halloween full moon, not even just blue moon, but full moon, will be in 2039. So that was a little bit more on the rare side. August 31st of 2023. This was 9 days before President Nelson turned 99 on September 9th, or 9/9. There was a super blue moon. So again, these 2 things together, a super moon and a blue moon, that's more on the rare side. Not as rare as a super blue blood moon, but still relatively rare. Okay, October 14th, 2023, there was an annular solar eclipse. The path of I need to correct that. The path of annularity passed through Utah, missing all Utah temples except the Manti Utah Temple, which at the time was decommissioned for renovations, except for the Monticello Utah Temple. Again, we'll look at the map for these solar eclipses in just a minute. The next one is also a solar eclipse. Well, I guess this is a good time to go there. Total solar eclipse, the day after General Conference and President Nelson and President Oak's 40-year anniversary as apostles, which President Nelson pointed out in his talk. The path of totality passed over the Sacred Grove and the Kirtland Temple. I was there for that. By the way, here's the video in case you want to watch it. This was one of the most amazing things that I've ever experienced in my life. I wish I could replay that. The best I can do is just watch that video over again, but it was truly something else. And then this happened the day before the first day of the Hebrew month, Nisan. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's hop over to Google Earth. So yeah, the 2017 eclipse, here's the path of totality. And you'll notice that it just barely got these three significant sites. Independence, Missouri, where I now live, far west, in Adamantiaman. The path of totality could not have varied by very much, otherwise it wouldn't have included these three sites. Then the October annular solar eclipse that I was talking about went through Utah. By the way, this was 7 days after October 7th, and Israel 365 News thought that that was significant. They wrote an article about it. Let's turn on temples, okay? And you'll see that if you were wanting to do a path of annularity through Utah and miss as many temples as you possibly could, this is the path that you would have to take. The Manti Utah Temple was decommissioned. The only temple that was in operation at that time was the Monticello Utah Temple right here. This green one is the Ephraim Utah Temple, and I can't remember. I think that's still under construction, but at the time it definitely was not there. It was not in operation. So it's just interesting. It goes through a significant state of the United States for our church, and it missed all the temples, with all the temples that are there, which are not few. Okay, and then the April 8th, 2024 eclipse that I was able to witness for myself. I saw the first one, but the one in 2017, but I was in Phoenix, so it wasn't I wasn't in the path of totality, but I was in the path of totality for this one. And you can see all these church sites. You have the Sacred Grove, you have Fayette, New York. I'm not going to explain all of them, but Fayette, of course, that's where the church was organized. You have the Kirtland Temple right here. You have Hiram, which at one time was headquarters of the church. The church has had 7 headquarters. Salt Lake City is the 7th. In fact, I can show that to you right now. Let me turn that off. And let's see. Where do I have it? Church headquarters right here. Here are the 7 headquarters of the church. Okay. Fayette. Then you have Kirtland. Then you have Hiram. And then you have Far West. And then you have Nauvoo. And then Winter Quarters. And finally, in the way that it is right now, Salt Lake City. And then at some point, it is going to be coming back to Jackson County, Missouri, Independence. And at that point, we're going to have 2 church headquarters, the New Jerusalem and the Old Jerusalem. Okay. So anyway, let's go back to this. So again, we're talking about all these lunar events during President Nelson's time, and then the one that happened during President Nelson's presidency. August 19th of 2024, there was a super blue moon 21 days before President Nelson turned 100. 21 is 3 times 7. And then the next most recent one, before the one that we're adding today, September 17th, 2024, a harvest moon, super moon, and blood moon, quote unquote, quite rare, according to NASA. And here's the article about it. Okay. Now, here's the new one. This is the 7th total lunar eclipse, or the 7th blood moon of President Nelson's presidency. I wanted to see if this coincided with anything in church history. So I did a search and Google's AI came up with this, but you can't trust this 100%. You have to verify it. And I'm glad that I did, because according to Google, you have March 14th, 1838, church headquarters was established in Far West, Missouri. March 14th, 1835, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles was organized in Kirtland. March 14th, 1844, a revelation gave the official name of the Council of 50. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then March 14th, 1832, Brigham Young was baptized. Whatever. So I wanted to verify it. The AI was using this website, which said that's when Brigham Young was baptized. But according to the church website, I thought I had it up. Well, anyway, according to the church website, that's not the right date. The Quorum of the 12 was organized on February 14th, not March 14th. However, March 14th was the day that church headquarters was established in Far West. So that was correct. So I added that to the spreadsheet. And then the revelation on the Council of 50, yes, according to the church website, that did occur on March 14th, 1844. You can pause and read this if you want, but this is, I think, kind of significant because the Council of 50 was an attempt to establish a political kingdom of God. We have the ecclesiastical kingdom of God in the church, but we don't have a political kingdom yet. That will be implemented at some point, definitely in the millennium when Christ comes and he is king. But this was an early attempt to create that democratic theocracy, is what it's called sometimes. So this could be significant that we're having this blood moon on the anniversary of this, because Christ is coming and he's going to be king and we're going to see his political government. So that's kind of interesting. And then Far West, we just talked about the fact that at one time it was church headquarters. You have the cornerstones for the temple that are still there. I plan on making frequent trips to Far West and Adamantiaman and sharing pictures and videos from there. But the story of Far West is not over yet. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, so I added that to the description here. And then I went to Israel 365. I'd seen this article. This was by Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz. Pre-Purim, that's how it's pronounced, how the Jews pronounce it. Purim, lunar eclipse, warning to the west. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it notes that this is taking place on the first day of Purim. That's one of it's like a Jewish holiday. It's an observance of when the Jews were saved from the Persians, essentially. There was one man named Haman that wanted to exterminate the Jews, and because of Esther, the Jews were saved, and so they commemorate it. It's a time when the Jews could have been exterminated, and they were saved by a miracle. So it's interesting that the blood moon is occurring on the first day of Purim. Here's hebcal.com, where you can see the Jewish calendar and our calendar. So here it is right here, the 14th, Purim. All right. And then it looks like he interviewed Rabbi Mordecai Ganuth. And I just want to read a little bit of what he said. Not that this is our doctrine or that this would be our interpretation, but I'm always interested to see how the Jews would interpret these kind of signs, because the Lord may be speaking in their language in a way that they understand. And so if he's talking to them and preparing them for the second coming, then I think that we can glean something from it too. So he says, it is more than a warning. They, meaning the Muslims, will be cut off from the moon in the middle of Ramadan. So it just so happens that Ramadan this year, here's the days of Ramadan. It's 30 days, and right in the middle, or really close to the middle, on the 14th right here, that's when you have the blood moon taking place. It's in the middle. I guess like here in the United States, it's going to be at night. So yeah, no, it is in the middle of Ramadan. Let me just double check here. It said, yeah, March 13th to 14th. So, okay, it's almost like right in the middle of Ramadan. But for all intents and purposes, it pretty much is. So he says, they'll be cut off from the moon in the middle of Ramadan. They'll be dislodged from their belief and fall into discord and confusion. After the lunar eclipse, they will begin to see a chain of disasters in their war against Israel. A lunar eclipse in the month of Adar is a sign that there will be war among the sons of Ishmael who are connected to the moon. It is also a sign of famine and drought for the West. Well, yeah, okay, I guess we'll see. Later on, Rabbi Gunuth noted that there will also be a solar eclipse on March 29th, which is the first day of Nisan. Quote, that is the month of Pesach, or Passover, when the Jews go out to freedom. This is a bad sign for the foreign leaders who will become like Pharaoh, examples of what happens to the nations that mistreat Israel. This is centered on Jerusalem. And then there's, he talks about more things. Oh yeah. The rabbi also noted a prophecy in the book of Joel that indicates that a blood moon will precede the coming of the Messiah. So what can we glean from this? That whenever there's a blood moon, they take note. It helps prepare their minds for Messiah, what we know will be the second coming of Christ, the true Messiah. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's do a recap with this blood moon. It's going to be the 187th anniversary of Far West being designated as church headquarters. Okay, I had to fix something there. The 181st anniversary of a revelation that gave the official name of the Council of 50, which has to do with the political kingdom of God, the first day of Purim, and the middle of Ramadan, the 14th day. So that's a lot of interesting things. And it's the 7th blood moon of President Nelson's presidency. Right after he gave his big second coming talk, and who knows what's going to happen during this next general conference. So very, very interesting. Let's go back to Forbes. So that was number 4. And this is the last one, number 5, a deep partial solar eclipse. When? Sunrise on Saturday, March 29th, 2025. So this is basically just before General Conference. Where? Eastern sky. On March 29th, a partial solar eclipse will be visible from northeastern North America, eastern Canada, and parts of Europe. In the U.S., those along the eastern coast will see a partially eclipsed sunrise. Check local times for the exact viewing period, but remember, never look directly at the sun without proper eye protection. So we just read from that article by Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz, Israel 365 News, that's going to be on the first day of Nisan. That's interesting. I just want to remind you that last year we had 2 total solar eclipses. One was on April 8th, which in that year, it was the day before the first day of Nisan, which in Judaism, they associate Nisan with the tribe of Judah. And then in October, the day before the first day of Tishri, which is the 7th month, in the month that corresponds with Ephraim, there was a second total solar eclipse. Okay, so the day before the first day of Judah and Ephraim, this was last year. And now in 2025, we have this solar eclipse, and it's going to be on the first day of Nisan. I can't tell you what it means, but it's not usual. It's not common. I can tell you that. All right, let's move on. I want to remind you really quick of a couple other things when it comes to total and partial, total and annular solar eclipses. I put together this spreadsheet a while ago. It's called Signs Eclipses 1. And you'll notice in this first row, you have all these significant cities. St. George. I include St. George because it's the site of the longest operating temple in church history in this dispensation, the St. George, Utah temple. I have the 7 headquarters of the church. I also have places like Adam-on-Yaman, Sacred Grove, Washington, D.C., Rome, Jerusalem, Carthage. I'm probably going to try and add on some more later on. But I wanted to see, using timeanddate.com, when these places could expect to see total or annular eclipses. Because unless you do something like this, it's just kind of like an abstract idea. You might think, well, it happens every so often, so is it really that special? Actually, no, it doesn't happen every so often. And yes, it is very special. So the first one that I have, so on timeanddate.com, it only goes from the year 1900 until, went way past it. I'll find it. Oh my gosh, 2199. The year 1900 till 2199. This is the window of time that we're looking at. So the first significant event was a total solar eclipse in 1925. This was just a few months after President Nelson was born. And you had a total solar eclipse, the path of totality of which went over the Sacred Grove, Fayette, and New York. In 1933, there was an annular solar eclipse, and the path of annularity went over Jerusalem. And then a whole bunch of nothing for a very long time. That brings us to 1994. There was an annular solar eclipse. This was May 10th. It was 20 days before President Benson passed away. And the path of annularity went over Independence, Missouri, Kirtland, Hiram, the Sacred Grove, and Fayette. So that's interesting. 20 days before President Benson dies. And it went over all these important church sites. 2012, there was an annular solar eclipse. It went over St. George. 2017, this is that first great American eclipse that we always think about. That went over Independence, Far West, and Adirondack. And then 2024, a total solar eclipse that went over, that went over Kirtland, Hiram, Sacred Grove, and Fayette. After that, the next one that we can look forward to for these locations would be 2045. August 12th, 2045, it's going to go over Salt Lake City. And then in 2048, there's going to be an annular solar eclipse that's going to come over Independence, Missouri. And then after that, there's some that are like way in the future. I'm not even looking at these at all right here. I feel like this right here says it all. This, and maybe you can include this. You can also go back again to this, the one that happened a few months after President Nelson was born. That was the last time that there was a total solar eclipse over the Sacred Grove. Okay. President Nelson's born, total solar eclipse over the Sacred Grove. And then you have to go all the way to 1994 and then all the way to 2024. I feel like there's something to that. Here's another view with the same information, but I've consolidated everything into columns A and B. So this is just another way to look at it if you want to. And that's pretty much it. Last year, there were so many signs in the heavens. Here's the Kirtland Temple with that total solar eclipse. This picture was taken by one of my viewers, Floyd Gowans. Thank you, Floyd, so much for sharing that with us. I have this video here that you can watch. I'll put a link for it in the description box below. And by the way, make sure to follow me on Instagram. The link for my Instagram is also in the description box. You know, we had this comet last year that was very visible. Here's this year. Smoke from the wildfires around Los Angeles. Here's a picture of the Hollywood Hills fire, which didn't do a whole lot of damage, but it was visible from the temple. Here's the Los Angeles, California temple. I took this one. When was this? December 30th of last year. It was the day that Jimmy Carter passed away. And this is literally what it looked like. Sometimes the camera will skew things. No, this is actually accurate. I thought that was pretty incredible. And then last year, we saw scenes like this a couple times when we had Iran's first and second ever direct attacks on Israel. So, you guys, we're living in like unprecedented times. And I know that because I've verified it. I've done the work to check. These things don't happen very often, but they're happening now, just within the last couple years. I guess you could go back to 2017, but basically, President Nelson's presidency, as far as like these type of signs goes, it's just like off the charts. So this is just one of the many reasons why I feel like the second coming is very soon. So let's look forward to this next general conference. For all these reasons, I think it is going to be significant and stand out in some way. But we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, that's going to be for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it. And I'll talk to you guys later.